Hey everyone, it's Fitz with the Walk and Talk after Kansas State just blows a game against KU 78-75. A lot of things went wrong for K-State in the second half after one of the more remarkable first halves of basketball that Kansas State's played under Bruce Weber. K-State led this game in the first half 50-34 at halftime. Nigel Pack was lighting it up, and KU didn't seem to have any solutions other than one little aspect of the game: rebounding. KU was absolutely dominating this game on the boards, and that never changed. In fact, it almost got worse in the second half as KU stormed from behind, leading this game for only 68 seconds to start and finish the game. And in the middle 39 minutes of the game, this was K-State for the most part, except down the stretch, K-State just wasn't exact enough. They didn't know what they wanted to do. We saw Selton Miguel take two three-point shots that were exactly what Kansas wanted. If Selton had hit one of those, K-State wins, but in that situation, I just don't see why Selton Miguel is taking those shots. And I thought offensively, K-State was really ill-defined. You come through this game and you look at some of the totals that jump out at you. Kansas State was called for 16 fouls in the second half. KU was called for 14 in the game. Kansas had 8 fouls called on them in the second half. KU shot twice as many free throws as K-State in the second half. And in some ways that's reflective of a team that was more aggressive offensively in the second half, but it also honestly is some uneven officiating. And I'm not saying these officials were one way or the other. They were a little bit all over the place, and the game lost its rhythm quite a bit in the second half. K-State was in rhythm in the first half, and it was a really, really nice thing to see from these Wildcats because they haven't started many games really fast. Maybe they'll come out of the gates, but then they'll give up some points, and maybe they'll come out of the gates and just be awful. But they were good the entire first half and kept pulling away from Kansas, and then KU went to work and started chipping away and made all of the plays down the stretch as K-State just didn't get any hoops in the final minutes of the game. And in fact, they held K-State scoreless. I think it was an 8-0 run at the end of the game. Just a horrible loss for K-State and Bruce Weber because they had this one. They had to screw it up, and they did. They did with just too many possessions of not knowing what they wanted to do and how they should go about their business, and you end up just kind of feeding into what Kansas was doing. They went box and one on Nigel Pack. They went triangle two on Pack and Noel, and those two guys were absolutely incredible. And of course, we have to talk about Nigel Pack. This kid was as good as any player has ever been in recent history, at least in Bramlage Coliseum, against Kansas. It brought back memories of Jacob Pullen. He finished this game with 35 points on 12 of 18 shooting. He was 8 of 12 from three-point range. And he was only 4 of 8 in the second half shooting. That's how good the defense was on him. They really shouted him. They locked him down. They bumped him. They pushed him around. They just stayed in front of him. Great defensive effort on Pack in the second half. Marquise Noel ended up in this game with 16 points and 6 assists. Now, what's interesting about that to me is he had 5 midway through the first half. And then Kansas beginning to take away his ability to drive to the basket and get some angles for passing. Just made it so much more difficult on K-State to run its offense in the second half. Great coaching job on Bill Self making those halftime adjustments. This is one that just absolutely stings because if you're a Bruce Weber fan, and you know that this game probably would have gone a long ways to him being retained as head coach. If you're a K-State fan, you never want to lose to KU, and particularly when you had such an incredible opportunity to get a win here at Bramlage Coliseum on Saturday. But KU gets out of here with the win. The Jayhawks are now 16-2 and 5-1. K-State falls to 10-8 and 2-5 on the season, 2-5 in the conference, as they've played very competitive in all 5 of those games, but they had little lulls in every single game that have cost them a chance to win. This one came right at the end, right when K-State could have put the game away. They couldn't find a way to make a bucket, in big part because 1, they were taking the wrong shots, and 2, on the other end of the floor, they could not keep Kansas off the backboard. KU outscored K-State 19-8 in this game in second chance points. They absolutely destroyed K-State on the offensive boards. And we can talk about officials, which we did. We can talk about some of the plays of the game, which we have. But at the end of the day, when you get your butts kicked rebounding the ball, you're going to lose a game. And that's exactly what happened to the Wildcats. Doesn't get any easier. Off to Baylor this week, just the #1 team in the country. We'll see if the Wildcats can find a way to pull that one off. And then they honestly get into an easier part of their schedule, if there is such a thing in the Big 12. They'll go to Ole Miss next weekend for the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and then they have some more maintainable wins in the near future coming up for the Cats as they get back into Big 12 play after Ole Miss. I'm Fitz. That's your walk and talk for this game. It was good to be back in Bramlage after a little quarantine. KU wins 78-75.